As of July 2025, the United States is grappling with cascading crises that render several states nearly unlivable. Climate change unleashes a relentless barrage of natural disasters, scorching heat waves, catastrophic floods, and raging wildfires, while social and economic decay manifests in skyrocketing crime, entrenched poverty, and collapsing infrastructure. These states are ensnared in a vicious cycle where environmental devastation and human suffering amplify each other, creating hostile environments where mere survival is a daily struggle. This video ranks the top 10 states facing the most severe livability challenges, from the 10th to the most dire, drawing on U.S. News & World Report's 2025 Best States Rankings, CNBC's 2024 Quality of Life Rankings, and climate-focused reports from ProPublica and The Independent. Each state's descent is fueled by a toxic combination of factors, making life an unrelenting ordeal for residents. 10th place, Oklahoma. Oklahoma's livability is obliterated by environmental chaos and social disintegration. Climate change intensifies a relentless cycle of tornadoes, floods, and droughts that devastate communities, with 2024 seeing over 50 tornadoes that leveled towns like Barnsdall. Aging infrastructure, crumbling levees, outdated power grids, and 40% of bridges rated deficient collapses under these assaults. Industrial pollution from oil and gas drilling poisons air and water, with groundwater contamination affecting 30% of rural wells. Oklahoma's environmental ranking is among the nation's worst, with air quality in Tulsa triggering health alerts. Violent crime surges, with Oklahoma City's homicide rate at 15 per 100,000, among the top 10 nationally. Healthcare is a catastrophe, with 25% of rural residents lacking access to a hospital and 20% uninsured. Chronic conditions like diabetes and heart disease afflict 15% of adults, worsened by a shortage of 3,000 doctors. Education is abysmal, with schools ranking 45th, underfunded by $1,000 per student below the national average, and a graduation rate of 78%. Poverty engulfs 16% of the population, with food insecurity affecting 1 in 6 households. Discriminatory policies, including 2023 laws restricting Native American land rights and weak LGBTQ+ protections, deepen social divides. Low wages, 20% below national averages, and a stagnant job market trap families in despair. Oklahoma's unending disasters and systemic failures create a brutal, unforgiving reality. 9th place, Indiana. Indiana's descent into unlivable conditions is driven by environmental ruin and social exclusion. Climate change fuels floods and polar vortex-driven cold snaps, with 2024's Ohio River flooding displacing 10,000 residents. Aging infrastructure, 50% of dams at risk of failure, and 20% of power lines outdated, leaves communities vulnerable to blackouts and water shortages. Industrial pollution from steel mills in Gary poisons air, with particulate matter 30% above EPA limits, and lead-tainted water affects 15% of households. Indiana's environmental ranking is dismal, reflecting decades of regulatory neglect. Violent crime festers, with Indianapolis's homicide rate at 17 per 100,000, up 20% since 2020. Discriminatory laws, including 2023 bans on gender-affirming care for minors and 2024 restrictions on DEI programs, alienate LGBTQ+ and minority groups, earning an F for inclusiveness in CNBC's 2024 rankings. Healthcare is scarce, with 35% of rural counties lacking a hospital and 12% of residents uninsured. Poverty grips 13% of the population, with 1 in 7 households facing food insecurity. Education stagnates, with schools ranking 38th, a 25% teacher shortage, and literacy rates below 80%. Manufacturing layoffs, with 5,000 jobs lost in 2024, and wages 15% below national averages, deepen economic despair. Indiana's toxic environment, discriminatory policies, and economic stagnation forge a bleak, hostile landscape. 8th place, Kentucky. Kentucky's livability is crushed by environmental devastation and economic collapse. Climate-driven floods, like 2022's eastern Kentucky deluge that killed 45 and destroyed 9,000 homes, overwhelm frail infrastructure with 60% of floodwalls outdated. Coal and factory runoff pollute rivers, with 25% of drinking water sources failing EPA standards, and Louisville's air pollution exceeds safe limits, driving asthma rates 20% above average. Kentucky's environmental ranking is among the bottom 10. Violent crime is rampant, with a homicide rate of 8 per 100,000, among the nation's highest. Healthcare is catastrophic, with 16% uninsured, 40% of rural hospitals at risk of closure, and the nation's highest opioid overdose rate, 2,200 deaths in 2024. Education is underfunded, with schools ranking 40th, teacher pay 20% below national averages, and a graduation rate of 80%. Poverty engulfs 17% of residents, worsened by a $1.8 billion fiscal shortfall in 2021 that slashed welfare and Medicaid. Discriminatory policies, including 2023 laws limiting LGBTQ+ workplace protections, deepen social rifts. Unemployment at 5.5%, and a declining coal industry, with 10,000 jobs lost since 2020, trap families in poverty. Kentucky's natural disasters, crime, and economic ruin create a suffocating environment. 7th place, Tennessee. Tennessee's livability is unraveling under environmental strain and social inequities. Climate-driven floods and storms swamp Nashville, with 2024's Cumberland River overflow submerging 5,000 homes due to failing drainage systems. Industrial and urban pollution taints rivers, with E. coli levels 50% above safe limits, and Memphis's air quality, among the worst, drives asthma rates to 15%. Violent crime surges, with Memphis's murder rate at 30 per 100,000, the nation's second highest. Discriminatory laws, including 2024 bans on LGBTQ+ foster care placements and gender-affirming care, foster hostility, earning an F in quality of life from CNBC's 2024 rankings. Healthcare is dire, with 30% of rural counties without a hospital and 14% uninsured. Poverty affects 15%, with food deserts impacting 1 in 5 urban residents. Education falters, with schools ranking 38th, 20% of teachers underqualified, and a graduation rate of 79%. Weak worker protections and wages 25% below national averages deepen economic insecurity. Tennessee's environmental crises, discriminatory policies, and rampant crime create a hostile, unsustainable reality. 6th place, Arkansas. Arkansas is a crucible of natural disasters and social collapse. Climate-fueled floods and tornadoes, with 2024's 30 twisters killing 15, devastate unprepared towns lacking storm shelters. Infrastructure is abysmal, with 35% of bridges structurally deficient and 20% of levees at risk of collapse. Agricultural runoff pollutes the Arkansas River, with 30% of water sources unsafe, and air pollution drives respiratory illnesses up 25%. Arkansas's violent crime rate is the nation's second highest, with Little Rock's homicide rate at 20 per 100,000. Discriminatory policies, including 2023 laws banning race discussions in schools and weak LGBTQ+ protections, earn an F for inclusiveness. Healthcare is non-existent in 40% of rural counties, with 17% uninsured and the highest diabetes rate, 14% of adults. Education is dire, with schools ranking 41st, a 30% teacher shortage, and a graduation rate of 78%. Poverty grips 17%, with childcare unavailable for 60% of families, forcing parents to quit jobs. Wages, 30% below national averages, and a stagnant economy cement Arkansas as a grueling, hopeless place to survive. 5th place, Texas. Texas's livability is collapsing under environmental catastrophes and social neglect. Extreme heat, with Dallas hitting 110 degrees for 30 days in 2024, kills 200 annually, while hurricanes and floods displace 50,000 in Houston. Droughts drain 60% of reservoirs, and the energy grid's 2024 blackouts left 5 million without power. Air pollution from Houston's refineries, with ozone levels 40% above EPA limits, triggers health alerts. Violent crime climbs, with San Antonio's homicide rate at 15 per 100,000. Healthcare is a disaster, with 18% uninsured and 80 primary care providers per 100,000, 30% below national averages. Discriminatory laws, including 2024 voting restrictions and bans on trans healthcare, marginalize minorities and LGBTQ+ groups. Population growth drives Austin's median home price to $550,000, unaffordable for 70% of residents. Infrastructure crumbles, with 25% of roads impassable and public transit absent in 80% of counties. Education lags, with schools ranking 39th and 20% of students in overcrowded classrooms. Texas's environmental disasters, social inequities, and infrastructure failures create a punishing reality. Fourth place, Arizona. Arizona's desert climate and social failures render it nearly unlivable. Phoenix's 113 days over 100 degrees in 2024 killed 450, while drought drains 70% of groundwater, leaving Rio Verde foothills without water. Wildfires scorched 2 million acres, blanketing cities in toxic smoke, with Phoenix's air quality 50% worse than national averages. Violent crime rises, with Tucson's homicide rate at 12 per 100,000. Healthcare is scarce, with 40% of rural residents lacking a doctor and 13% uninsured. CNBC's 2024 rankings place Arizona in the bottom 10 for quality of life, citing discriminatory laws like 2023 bans on trans athletes and weak worker protections. Housing costs, with Phoenix's median rent up 40% since 2020, outstrip wages, 25% below national averages. Poverty affects 14%, and education falters, with schools ranking 42nd and a 20% teacher shortage. Infrastructure is crumbling, with 30% of water systems failing. Arizona's climate crisis, social inequities, and economic strain make life a relentless struggle. Third place, New Mexico. New Mexico's livability is obliterated by environmental extremes and social collapse. Heat and drought, with 2024 temperatures hitting 105 degrees, deplete 60% of aquifers, while wildfires, like 2022's 340,000-acre blaze, choke air, ranking quality among the worst. Infrastructure fails, with 30% of roads impassable after floods and 25% of bridges deficient. New Mexico's violent crime rate is the nation's highest, with Albuquerque's murder rate at 35 per 100,000. Healthcare is catastrophic, with 45% of rural residents lacking hospitals, 15% uninsured, and diabetes affecting 16% of adults. Poverty engulfs 19%, with 1 in 5 households food insecure. Education is dire, with schools ranking 48th, a 35% teacher shortage, and a 73% graduation rate. Discriminatory policies, including weak Native American protections, deepen divides. Job scarcity, with unemployment at 6%, and non-existent child care trap families. New Mexico's harsh conditions, environmental ruin, crime, and poverty offer no escape. In the second place, Mississippi. Mississippi's conditions are nearly unlivable, driven by environmental ruin and systemic failure. Hurricanes and floods batter Biloxi, with 2024 storms destroying 3,000 homes due to failing levees. Industrial pollution poisons the Mississippi River, with 25% of water sources unsafe, and Jackson's smog drives asthma rates to 20%. Mississippi ranks 49th in quality of life in 2025, with the nation's lowest income, $26,000 per capita, and a 20% poverty rate. Healthcare is apocalyptic, with 22% uninsured, 50% of rural hospitals closed, and the highest obesity rate, 40% of adults. Education fails, with schools ranking 49th, a 40% teacher shortage, and a 75% graduation rate. Violent crime is rampant, with Jackson's homicide rate at 25 per 100,000. Discriminatory laws, like 2024 voting restrictions, marginalize black communities. Social services are gutted, with welfare covering only 5% of the poor. Mississippi's relentless crises, disasters, crime, and deprivation trap residents in a nightmare. And the first place is Louisiana. Louisiana is the most unlivable state in 2025, a wasteland of environmental devastation and social collapse. Climate-driven hurricanes, coastal erosion, and floods, with 2024's storms displacing 20,000 drowned communities, with sea level rise claiming 2,500 square miles since 2000. Infrastructure is non-existent, with 40% of levees failing and 35% of roads underwater post-storm. Petrochemical pollution creates Cancer Alley, with cancer rates 60% above national averages, and air and water quality rank 49th. Louisiana ranks 50th in U.S. News & World Report's 2025 rankings, with the nation's highest homicide rate, 12 per $100,000, and incarceration rate, fostering fear. Poverty engulfs 21%, with 30% of children food insecure. Healthcare is crippled, with 16% uninsured, 60% of rural clinics closed, and the highest diabetes rate, 15% of adults. Education ranks 46th, with schools underfunded by $2,000 per student and a 78% graduation rate. Discriminatory policies like weak Black and LGBTQ+ protections deepen divides. Louisiana's unending disasters, crime, and systemic failures make survival a daily battle. The 10 states from Oklahoma to Louisiana are mired in catastrophic livability crises in 2025, overwhelmed by climate-driven disasters, rampant violent crime, crushing poverty, and discriminatory policies. Failing infrastructure and gutted social services leave residents trapped in environments where daily life is a grueling struggle. These states serve as stark warnings of systemic neglect and environmental collapse, with communities pushed to the edge of survival. Meanwhile, other states are emerging as beacons of hope, offering better prospects for residents seeking stability. Minnesota, with its robust healthcare, low crime, and strong education system, ranks among the top in U.S. News & World Report's 2025 list. Washington excels in environmental quality and economic opportunity, bolstered by proactive climate policies. Vermont, with its focus on inclusivity and community resilience, provides a model for equitable living. These states, through investments in infrastructure, social equity, and sustainability, are becoming increasingly livable, offering a contrast to the dire conditions of the states listed here. For those able to relocate, these alternatives highlight the possibility of a better future amidst a nation of stark contrasts.